These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
All right, predictably, I called this yesterday. I believe I said before we started talking Karl-Anthony Towns, sort of that trade rumor from Heavy.com, or the Heavy.com NBA insider talked to like Eastern Conference executives and said the New York Knicks are a team to watch this summer. And if you guys remember, what did I say before I threw out a trade idea? I said, I'm going to get killed for this, and I'm probably not asking for enough draft picks in return from the Knicks.
And I warned you at that point.
You did.
And I got largely slaughtered on Twitter and YouTube. The Wolves would never do that, right? They would need more picks. But then I had Knicks fans in my mention saying, we don't want Towns, and nor would we trade quickly or Obi Toppin or whatever.
Might not.
So I feel like everyone overvalues their own players. Like you're going to need way more than that for our player. And then the Knicks are over there like, we don't want that guy. What are you talking about? So that's not going to stop us from talking about 5 potential Karl-Anthony Towns trade ideas on this Tuesday. Reckless Speculation Thursday on a Tuesday, boys.
I love it.
Reckless speculation.
On
God, I
Minnesota.
love it.
Yes, Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd, your home for daily Minnesota sports entertainment, therapy, and in this case, speculation. And Declan wants us to mention this, and he's 100% right. We have some new content coming next week. We've listened to you, the audience. Now that football season's over, we were very draft heavy, and the Wild and the Wolves were playing in the playoffs, and now like everything kind of came to a crashing halt over the weekend. And so starting on Monday, every Monday on this show, we're going to give you our State of the Minnesota Twins episode, a deep dive into the Twins every single Monday. And we're going to sprinkle in Twins talk as well. But we've heard from a lot of people that, hey, the Twins they're in first place. They're playing pretty well. They have a good pitching staff. Byron Buxton's hitting gangbusters. So we're going to talk Twins every Monday for sure. A deep dive State of the Twins address. The return of our movie rewind franchise comes back a week from Friday. So every Friday, we're going to do action movie rewinds. We're going to do sports movie rewinds, maybe some rom-com movie rewinds.
We're going to do some rom-coms. That's an
for sure.
Decision.
Yes. And then we're going to start live streaming our Friday shows, at least chunks of them. We're kind of working this out, but we're going to be doing live streaming Friday. Most of the stuff we do, unless we're doing post games or vent lines, is pre-recorded on demand. And so we want to provide a little opening on Feedback Friday to do some live streaming. So look forward to that starting maybe Friday for the live streaming, and then next week for the State of the Twins on Monday, and then the following Friday for the movie rewinds.
What's the first film?
We have to decide that.
I think Fast Five.
Thought Declan. I thought you would have decided already.
No, we said Fast Five at the end of our last run last summer.
Fast Five? Okay.
Yeah, because we left on Fast and Furious, right?
Well, that's what you're
Fast
saying.
Four, yeah.
So that was Fast. Yeah, Fast. All right, let's do
And
it.
a lot of people are saying Fast Five is the best of all of them. And there's another one
Vin's
coming
in
out
that one,
soon.
right?
Yes.
Vin's back in that one.
And Vin was in the last one.
I lost track.
We lost.
Okay.
Yep,
And The Rock, isn't that The Rock's debut too in Fast Five?
I believe that. I've only seen Fast and Furious, so we'll all be watching these now for the first time.
Interesting.
So if you have recommendations for action movies, sports movies, or romantic comedy movies that you want us to do an all too deep dive into, just let us know and we'll incorporate them. So, all right, boys, Karl-Anthony Towns trade ideas. The steam has already started to percolate with this Heavy.com article. And I just want to preface this by saying Judd is the one that's the most full bore on trading Towns. You have said...
I'm done with him.
Right? You are done with Towns.
I'm done with him.
I have said I'm open to anything that makes this team better and that builds around Anthony Edwards, and Cat is by far your best trade asset. Yes. So if it's not working and it appears that, you could run it back, but like to what I think you saw enough. It just feels kind of clunky. So I'm wide open to these trade ideas. And I think it should be for a combination of either draft picks and or players who are younger. So if you can get a star player who's like 27 and younger and kind of fits the age curve, awesome. If you can't, then can you get some of the draft capital back that you lost in the Gobert trade? So those are kind of and obviously pieces that complement Anthony Edwards.
Yes.
So this is just a little speculation among friends here.
It's already out there, though. Like, I think It's not a fire yet, but a cigarette was just thrown out the window, and we're getting that smoldering right before the fire starts. Mm-hmm. I think we're getting some smoldering.
Yep. And again, this is something they're probably going to talk about all possibilities. Don't smoke.
Don't smoke, Declan.
Yeah, there might have been a cigarette enjoyed after the draft party on
I drive by Declan and Ron, and they're both lit up
just ripping the heater outside.
Yeah, it's like, what is this?
Oh, yeah, that's the good stuff right there.
How about that?
They really packed that house. Yeah.
How about that draft party? Like Mad Men.
See
I
how many
drove
people
by
we had
John Hamm.
See how many people we had watching on YouTube? Yeah, give me a drag of that.
I'm famous now.
All right. Trade idea number one. And again, there might be more pieces and stuff here, but the core of this trade idea would be Karl-Anthony Towns to Boston, who just lost at home in game one to a Joel Embiid-less Sixers team.
Yes.
If let's say they get bounced and they lose a game or two to a Joel Embiid-less team and they get bounced in the second round of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So Jaylen Brown will be 27 years old this fall. He's coming off a career-high scoring and rebounding season. He's under contract for just one more season at $30 million. So if the Celtics have decided, God, we've kind of hit a glass ceiling with Tatum and Brown, which kind of felt like they did a couple years ago, but then they made it work. Before they pay him again, would they maybe look to trade him for an asset that shakes up the team, like a Karl-Anthony Towns? There's been a ton of rumors swirling about Jaylen Brown's future, and when he's been asked about it this year, hey, you got one more year left on your contract. Do you want to sign an extension? He's been very mysterious when talking about his future in Boston. So, again, if the Celtics come up short with Tatum and Brown, and I think anything short of a championship at this point, the Bucks are out. You know, the Western Conference is kind of wide open, but the Bucks are out. The Celtics should be not steamrolling to the East because there's some good teams left, but, you know, if they come up short, I could see them looking to shake things up. So, how much could Jaylen Brown and Anthony Edwards play off each other? They're both kind of 6'6", 6'7" wing players.
Yeah.
Would you have to move Jaden McDaniels to the 4, but he's not a great rebounder? Would he have to go to the bench? You'd have to figure this out, but your starting point would be Brown and Edwards playing together up and down the court, two guys who are going to combine to average about 50 points a game. That would be an interesting couple lethal scorers next to each other growing into their prime years. Could be an interesting combination.
And is that a straight trade then?
Well,
probably.
So that's what, here's the thing. If I'm the Timberwolves, I think it would depend on a Jaylen Brown contract extension, right? Because
correct. Yes.
If
absolutely.
I'm trading like a half decade of Karl-Anthony Towns for what amounts to be what? I think let me just check his contract here. I think it's 1 year, $30.7 million of Jaylen Brown.
Yeah. So
now, if you're Boston, you might say, well, I mean, Towns kind of melted down in the playoffs again a little bit, and he's been hurt. So, but to me, that actually seems like if that's about as close to a star for star swap. Maybe there's another piece or two involved, but that's pretty close to a star for star swap.
You have other
obviously, they have to make the money work though. Cat has like $10 more million on the book. Sorry, Declan.
I was going to say, I know you have more ideas, but that one seems like the most fun. Like Jaylen Brown, Anthony Edwards, that would be an absolute blast. I would love that as a Timberwolves fan.
Yeah, he's just, he's kind of, I'd like to see Jaylen Brown also, if he came in with Anthony Edwards, I guess it might be a similar dynamic in that who's the alpha. So I was going to say, I'd like to see Jaylen Brown from out of the shadow of Jason Tatum, but would he then be kind of in the shadow of Anthony Edwards, or would those guys play off each other? And you see that in some cases. So it would be really interesting.
I don't mean to spoil this one, but how does this also fit with Gobert being here still? Like, how well does this all fit together as far as that piece of the puzzle goes?
Yeah, it's a good question because, like, Anthony Edwards doesn't seem to have great chemistry.
That's what I'm saying. That's the one thing that concerns me is, like, does this fit with him? Because he's clearly staying put, and if he's staying put, he's going to play.
Well, I mean, if there is any way, shape, or form that you could, in a multi-team trade, say goodbye to Gobert and bring in Jaylen Brown, I'm not saying it would be a Celtics-Timberwolves trade, but there'd be other teams involved. But at this point, so this is the thing. You could make a case that Cat's value is close to equal to Jaylen Brown's value in a trade, but I don't know that you would make that case for Rudy Gobert at this point.
Agree completely.
31.
Absolutely.
So, again, there'd be part of the problem is if you had, let's say your lineup was Gobert and then you played a little more small ball, moved Jaden to the 4, and then you had Your wing players, your 2 and your 3 would be Anthony Edwards and Jaylen Brown, and then Mike Conley is your point guard. It's a pretty small lineup. And again, Jaden McDaniels is not a very good rebounder. So and Ant and Jaylen Brown can rebound a little bit for their size, but you'd have some major rebounding problems there. Would you then have to move Jaden McDaniels to a bench role? Hey, you're going to be this insane sixth man that comes in. You're still going to get your 30 minutes. You're still going to get Defensive Player of the Year run, but we have to bring you off the bench for lineup combination reasons. So, but if you could get Jaylen Brown, you might just try to figure that out.
Okay.
All right. Idea number 2. Again, there are probably going to be other pieces involved here because of salary reasons for sure, but you talk to the Brooklyn Nets, another team that has been rumored to maybe sniff around Karl-Anthony Towns. He's from New Jersey, so he's from the area. Mikal Bridges. A rock-solid two-way wing player. He's 6'6". He's going to be 27 years old this upcoming season. 3 years remaining on his contract, $23 million a year. So when he went to Brooklyn, he went from Phoenix to Brooklyn in that Kevin Durant trade. They basically said, all right, well, you're going to get a chance to shoot and score a lot more than you did in Phoenix because you were sitting there with Devin Booker and Chris Paul and everyone else. He instantly jumped to a 26 points per game scorer pretty efficiently as well. He can shoot threes. He's a two-way player, can play defense. So, again, his one deficiency is rebounding. He's not a great rebounder. So would you move Jaden to the 4? You'd have to figure this out. Would he go to the bench? But I'm really interested in Mikal Bridges, and I think he would actually fit better next to Karl-Anthony Towns or next to Anthony Edwards than maybe Karl-Anthony Towns does. So Bridges as the second option.
Intrigues me more. I like the fact that he would come here with team control on his contract as well, which would probably help us smooth things out a bit. I'd say I like that one more than the first trade because if I'm Jaylen Brown, I'm not sure I'm just going to sign here. Like, I'd probably need to see how things play out here, and then if I do that and I'm about to become a free agent on July 1st of 2024, odds are good that I'm going to at least explore the open market. So I think door number 2, because of those things, intrigues me more. But I'm curious to hear the trades coming up that probably also involve more collateral and draft picks.
Yep.
Which you've lost so much of.
By the way, I also so Bridges is a Villanova guy. There's something about that Villanova pipeline of players. Jalen Brunson, he played with Jalen Brunson in college. The Kyle Lowrys, the DiVincenzo's. Like, there's just like a tough, hard-nosed nature to those Villanova players, and Bridges has that Villanova DNA. So I don't know. That's just my own personal preference. But okay, 3 more ideas for you. This next one is also more of a one-for-one swap. There'd probably be a couple other pieces involved, but this is a guy who seems to have a ton of rumors swirling around him. Now, here's a guy.
Here's a guy.
He's way younger than maybe it seems. I don't even think he's 25 years old yet. 4 years left on a max contract. Trae Young.
Yeah.
The Hawks have been sitting in kind of this weird no man's land. You know, they're feisty, they're scrappy. They did just bring in Quinn Snyder.
Hell of a coach.
So maybe they want to run it back for another year to see with him as the coach. But Trae Young, there's just a weird vibe in Atlanta, and I think he might be part of it too. He can be a little bit of a cantankerous guy. He's not.
Yes.
I don't know that he's the leader that like a Steph Curry is, and some of these other, similar guard players. He's kind of like diet Steph Curry and a little more cantankerous when you watch him. But man, that dude is a tenacious, unstoppable scoring force. Doesn't really play a lick of defense. So you'd have some defensive problems, but you'd have Anthony Edwards and Trae Young in your backcourt, and I guess Mike Conley would come off the bench at that point, which he barely does in his 15-year career.
Yeah, that's fine though.
And you'd have Jaden McDaniels probably remains a starter, and then Naz Reid. Hopefully, you'd bring him back to come off the bench. But your tandem would be a 21-year-old Anthony Edwards and a 25-year-old Trae Young, and you just kind of figure out defense later.
What's the chemistry there? I'd be curious about that one.
It makes me a little nervous.
Because you're right, Trae Young, definitely cantankerous. That's a perfect word.
Yeah.
But he's a hell of a player.
If it can be channeled in the right way, and I don't know, maybe it needs to be a different team other than the Timberwolves, or maybe this is just who he's destined to be, just a guy that scores 27 points a game on mediocre teams. But He's kind of a volume scorer too. He's a little bit like he's going to shoot 42%. He's going to have to take about 20 shots to get the 25 points.
Yeah.
But that's a piece that could be available, I'm saying, if you make a phone call.
I think I still like, so of the three potential, I think I like the Nets one still the most.
Okay.
Plus, I don't know if the
Mikal
Hawks.
Bridges.
Yes.
Maybe Bridges, you'd have to have another player and then maybe like a pick or something.
Plus, I think the Hawks would see that the problem with Cat is if Cat went there, he'd sort of be counted on like he is here to be a main guy. And I wonder if the ship has sailed on Cat it feels to me like Cat's at the point where it's just clear if he can fit in, which I think he can if he goes elsewhere, he'd be good. But if he shows up and you sort of need him to play the same alpha role that the Wolves need, I think teams got to be smart enough now to say, if it didn't work there, it's probably not going to work here with that same role, don't you?
But keep in mind, though, these aren't the NBA doesn't really operate one for one. Like this team's going to trade with this team. So when I say Trae Young and Karl-Anthony Towns, Towns might go to a third team.
Okay.
And the Hawks might rebuild or something.
Okay.
So I just want to make that clear. I'm not saying that in that trade scenario, Cat winds up with the Hawks.
Gotcha. Okay.
Maybe he winds up with Brooklyn, and then Brooklyn kicks something to or maybe he winds up with the Knicks. The Knicks kick something to the Hawks, and then the Hawks kick Trae Young to the Wolves.
I hear you.
That's kind of how NBA trades are almost always 3 and 4 teams. It seems like. So, all right, 2 more ideas for you. The first one presented by our friends over at Nutrisource. Okay. Speaking of cat, okay, whether you have a cat or a dog, the official pet food of Mackey and Judd and Score North, Maya Mackey this morning was once again very excited for her Nutrisource chicken and rice. I busted out the Nutrisource treats this morning after her potty walk, and man, she just has a perma grin on her face every time Nutrisource comes out.
6 a.m. wake-up call from Stella, who said, you know what? Get off your rump, get out of bed, and feed me now. It's Nutrisource time. And I said, Stella, you live the good life, and a large part of that is because every day you get the delicious and healthy helping of Nutrisource. So, of course, I went and did exactly as I was told because I'm a heck of a dog father.
Rump is a great word, too. That's another good one we should use
old
more.
School.
Get off your rump. That is a good one.
Rump is an old school term.
That's kind of like
my grandma used it.
That's kind of like Vincent, too. He likes to stay at the end of the bed at the beginning of the night, but as the morning approaches, he just gets closer and closer and closer until the same thing. He's pawing at you. He's trying to be cute. He lays his little head on you, but he's just staring daggers in your eyes as in, get up, let's go outside and give me my Nutrisource.
Yes.
That's NutrisourcePetFoods.com to find a retailer near you. NutrisourcePetFoods.com. And a thank you to Dennis Kirk for supporting us here at Score North. Make sure your motorcycle is ready with Dennis Kirk. Whatever you ride, you'll find what you need at DennisKirk.com so you can ride more and wait less. Over 180,000 parts and accessories in stock. Clothing and helmets as well. Shipping is free for orders over $89. If you order by 8 p.m., they ship the same day. Everything you need for your ride at DennisKirk.com. Okay. Continuing here.
Reckless speculation.
Okay, this is just a little reckless speculation among friends. I always know how these get interpreted. Oh, Mackey wants to trade Karl-Anthony Towns for Obi Toppin. What an idiot. We're just floating ideas.
Well, I did try to warn you again about that, though. I knew where that was going. Sure as hell, I could feel it. And then Twitter blows up and people are just bashing you. It's very unfair.
So let's get to the Knicks package here. Okay, this is the 4th idea of the 5.
All right.
So they have several interesting young players that are on either rookie scale contracts or maybe they're on like RJ Barrett. I think RJ Barrett signed a max, so he's got 4 years left in his max. But the Knicks, and then who knows? Like the Knicks offseason plans are going to be shaped by whatever happens maybe in this Miami Heat series. They just got beaten game 1, right? Yeah,
right.
So they might get that taste of the playoffs and say, let's add one more piece. We added Jaylen Brunson. Let's add one more piece. Or they might lean into the core and say, let's keep it together for another year and see what happens. But whether it's Emmanuel Quickley, who I love, he's a combo guard, point guard, went to Kentucky. He was a late first-round draft pick. He has incrementally improved his game. If you look in the margins, like some of where he scores on the court, he's broadened his offensive game the last 3 years. He's an Energizer bunny, and he's sitting behind Jaylen Brunson for minutes. But quickly, Quentin Grimes is a sniper three-point shooter. Obi Toppin is kind of, you don't really know exactly what he is, but he's a top 10 pick who's bouncy and 6'9". RJ Barrett was the 3rd overall pick from Duke a few years ago. He did sign a max contract, hasn't maximized. Some combination of like 2 of those guys and draft picks. And you'd probably have to take on a bad contract like just to make the salaries match, like the Fournier contract or something. But where I was going with this yesterday, I personally love Quickly. You need someone behind Mike Conley to take over at some point who can be a ball handler and a playmaker for you. Mm-hmm. Quickly's going to be 24 years old next year. 1 more year left on his rookie deal. He's a scoring point guard that can also play off ball. He's ready for a bigger role. He started 21 games last year for the Knicks, but could probably, he could probably play like 1 more year behind Conley as like a 30-minute backup. But then he probably has to be a starter at some point. His game has developed a ton over the last 3 years, scoring at the rim, scoring mid-range, making plays for people. So the Knicks also have a bunch of first-round picks that they could maybe deal between now and 2025. So I guess here's my official. Can you get between Quickly, Grimes, Toppin, and RJ Barrett? I would say it has to be either Quickly or Barrett for sure, maybe both, or maybe it's Quickly, Grimes, Toppin, or something, and a first-round pick or 2. But some combination of multiple first-round picks and 2 or 3 young players for Karl-Anthony Towns.
This one intrigues me a ton. Because I desperately want to get some of the first-round picks that went to the Jazz as a starting point. Second of all, I'd love to get young players or a couple of them that I think could fit in. Because the nice thing now, unlike the Garnett trade, is I know who I'm building around. When KG went, you didn't really know. Now I think that there's no doubt about it. It's Ant. I think this intrigues me the most because, one, it removes question marks. Like, I don't want to have like a straight trade or get a player back and then you got some more problems. Like, I'm already trying to sort things out. My goodness, Gobert already is a potential pain in the ass for what he's going to be next season, right? So I think this one intrigues me the most because I get first-round picks back, and more importantly, I get building blocks to go on to put around Ant. Because the most important thing to me is I know what my goal is now. It's executing it. And I just think that we're past the point where Cat is part of that. I really do. I have not seen enough from Cat. And I guess the most important thing is in the maturation process, I haven't seen enough from Cat to be confident here. So of these trades, I think this one is my favorite so far.
Over the Jaylen Brown trade.
Yes. Okay. The Jaylen Brown trade I would make if I thought that there was a chance that I was set to pop right now, but I don't know that. And I want this to be Ant's team. I don't want there to be a question there. And with Gobert still here, you guys, I don't know where you're going to be for sure next season, but I want myself to be tracking right. And look, the return of first-round picks, if I have anyone competent picking, shouldn't hurt me. Mm-hmm. Should help me.
Yeah.
Dex?
I still like the Brown one the most.
It's more fun.
Yeah.
Brown also answers the question of like, okay, if you trade Cat, who's your secondary scorer? It's Anthony Edwards, and Jaylen Brown is your primary scorer, or they're just 1A, 1B.
Yep.
So maybe I'm overvaluing a guy like Quickly, but I just think, you're going to trade Cat for backups? Okay, well, Quickly's not going to be a backup. He's playing behind Jalen Brunson essentially. So I kind of like the idea of maybe you take a step back. It's not maybe your overall team takes a slight step back, or maybe the chemistry and the pieces fit better together and you can play a different style, and now you also have some draft picks. So I'll give you one more here. It would be talking to the Blazers, not about Damian Lillard, because I think that's now we're going to add another 30-plus-year-old guy and make around this thing. But you go to the Blazers and say, man, Dame's been so loyal to you, and once again, you guys couldn't even make the play-in, for God's sakes. I don't know why he continues to stay there.
He doesn't care. He clearly does not care.
It's like, but I think
he loves Portland.
He does love Portland.
I think he's just happy in Portland.
He loves that life.
He likes where he works.
He's competitive, but all right. So he's going to stay in Portland. So could you go to the Blazers and say, all right?
Declan clearly knows more than he's saying.
I've been told.
Go ahead.
I've been told he loves because
Declan oddly
the
has
same
Blazers sources.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. This is great.
I was like, why don't they just move him? And he says he is adamant he doesn't want to go anywhere. That's what I was told. He loves the Trailblazers, loves Portland. He doesn't want to chase the ring. He just
What does Portland have that most places don't?
Well, I mean, great lifestyle, great weather. Yeah, if you like the rain, if you like that type of stuff. Okay. But yeah, that's why he doesn't want to move.
I think more places have what you're referring to now than you're giving credit.
It's not really specific anymore.
You can also get it in places that don't have it legal. But yes.
That's true. Good point.
So Damian Lillard's clock is ticking, right? You got to put talent around him. They do have this Anthony Simons, who has turned into a really good scorer. He's 24 years old this summer. But, if you're Damian Lillard, are you going to wait for like Anthony Simons to become a fully realized player? Or would you rather just have an established guy who is third team NBA? So would the Blazers want to maybe trade like Anthony Simons and another piece or two to make the salaries work and draft picks to the Timberwolves? And then for the Wolves, you'd have, this is the problem though, like Simons he's undersized, he's 6'3" shooting guard who's really bad defensively. So I just don't know. Does he come off the bench as a sixth man? He's not your point guard really. And I'm not moving Ant to the 3, but the Blazers would have, or you get a third team involved here in some form. I think Cat to the Blazers makes more sense than like the Blazers pieces back to the Wolves, but it would mostly be centered around draft picks and a young player like a Simons.
Knicks. I'm going Knicks. Going home.
Okay.
Carl's going home.
So Judd votes Knicks. Declan, sounds like you vote Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, you're rooting now for the Knicks and the Celtics to lose to the Heat and the Sixers respectively in the second round. So it triggers action. I think that's what or even in the, if the Celtics lose in any round, it might trigger action. If the Knicks make it to the conference finals, I think it makes it more likely they want to run it back. Oh, look what we did, right? Let's let the young guys get a year older and see what happens.
But Cat to the Knicks, though, would be extremely tempting, right? Because he's a huge name. His old representative Rose is there. Like there would be some temptation, I think, and which is why that report that we talked about on Monday's show came out. I think I think there's a temptation from the Knicks to make a trade for a guy like Cat.
I actually think so. Declan votes Celtics. You vote Knicks. I actually might vote Brooklyn on this one because I love Mikal Bridges, and he's just a hard-nosed two-way player. I think his 3-year, $23 million per year deal is under the market value for him the next 3 years too. So you'd be recouping some value there, and you'd be getting further away from the luxury tax if you could find a way out of. I mean, you'd have to take on another contract or so, but really interesting. So I'll vote Brooklyn.
Okay,
I'll vote Brooklyn.
Okay,
if it happens,
I'll report back on the Trailblazers scoop if that works out for you.
I just love how you're full, like you're just filled with Blazers.
Could you float
scoops, knowledge?
Once you float, would Damian Lillard find himself enjoying playing basketball next to Karl-Anthony Towns? Just see what your sources say.
Okay, I can do that
because he loves Portland so much.
And then ask what would they give back in return, just hypothetically.
Yeah. Just a little conversation among friends. Yeah,
yep, that's all this is.
Yeah, just conversation.
I know exactly how this episode's going to get aggregated and bounced around too. You trade Cat for Anthony Simons in a second-round pick? No.
A Minnesota sports talk host brought up the fact that Dame clearly has issues. Yes, on hoops. Yes. What's wrong with Dame? Declan Geff.
Shams comes on Stadium and just absolutely refutes. He's like, no, that's not the case.
That's not what I'm
hearing.
Not
remotely true.
Dexlan Giff.
The clan is usually
you should change your last name to
1500
Giff.
ESPN.
Amazing. All right, there you go. There's a little speculation on a Tuesday here among friends.
That was good stuff.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let Twitter now light up with anti-Mackey sentiments for the rest of today into tomorrow until we're back on.
Can't wait. Just another normal day in Scoreville.
Mackey.
See you guys.